Right, hello everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this sunny day. This is the first of our business support program in partnership with Valent. Valent have been running some amazing online sessions. They did one this morning that I sat in on about selling for trades and tradespeople, and it really was good. So they've been proudly supporting installers throughout, throughout all the year, but especially as we've kind of gone into lockdown with these online sessions. So please head to their website to find out more of them. They're definitely worth it. Like I said, I sat in the one earlier and it was brilliant. So today, this is the first one that we're doing as part of our business support program. And we've got Grant from Shake and Spear. And Grant's going to take us through the best ways to promote your business online. So we're talking things like websites, SEO, online marketing. So really good, specifically designed for heating and plumbing engineers and tradespeople in general. So a bit of housekeeping. We're going to have a short presentation and then there'll be a time for a Q&A afterwards. We've got the chat box here to the right. So please feel free to use that as much as possible. And Grant will, if there's something that he's going through the presentation, you think, oh, I'd like an answer to that right now, he can answer that as it comes in. But if you've got a specific question, there's an ask a question box just about here. If you put it in there, that's a lot easier for us to keep track. And at the end, we can make sure that all your questions get answered by Grant. And if it's very, very specific, we can catch up afterwards. So Grant, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you, Joe. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Like I said, it's baking here, so it's good. But you're looking outside now, being like, oh, I could go for a nice walk in the park after this one. But can you tell us a little bit about your background and the background of Shake and Spear?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Grant. I'm the founder of Shake and Spear. We're a digital marketing company with a specialism in helping tradespeople. We've been running for just over 2 years now, and have helped trades across the entire country from all sorts of different trades, from boiler installation, plumbers, heating engineers, all the way through to demolition. We've even done some airport car parking at some point. We've done all sorts of different things, but we specialize in working with tradespeople. We have got to know lots of trades through the likes of Twitter and social media, and we've also gone along to quite a few of the shows, trade shows and so on. Not so many this year, obviously, but it's really good to be part of these type of things. We got into helping trades because when we first started out, we got to know quite a few tradespeople, helped build their websites, and found that we were able to make a real difference. And we saw that the impact of the stuff that we were doing with them really helped. So we decided to specialize, and here we are. So that's why Shake and Spear are here today, to continue helping trades to sort of make the most of their online presence. And in this particular instance, we're going to go over some tips on what are the best ways to promote your business online.
Yeah, we spoke about this because obviously for tradespeople, especially those running their own business and they're out all the time a lot, they're working a lot on the tools, so they kind of want their website and their digital marketing to be as pain-free as possible, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So what are we going to be learning today?
Yeah, so we're going to be going over exactly as the title says, what are some of the best ways to promote your business online. So there are a few sections which we're going to be focusing on. First one's going to be how you can use your website, what are the best things to have on it, social media, whether or not it's actually worth it, whether or not you think you should use it, some ads, look at a bit of Google ads, a bit of Facebook ads, and we'll also then look at Google My Business, which we've got quite a lot of information on and more information to follow afterwards, and then look at some other methods as well. So that's sort of the outline of the presentation. And then, as Joe said, at the end or during, feel free just to throw out some questions and I'll answer them as we go.
Yeah, perfect. So please use the chat box as much as you like, and the ask a question button are just kind of there. So yeah, please carry on, Grant, and then I'll pop back up at the end and we can get some of those questions answered.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So let's get started. I've actually covered most of this already, so this is what we're going to be looking at in today's workshop. So websites, social media, ads, Google My Business, look at a bit about Bark, and then some others before Q&A. This is me. As I said, I'm the founder of Shake and Spear, and we're trades specialists. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is that your online presence is going to be one of the most powerful allies when it comes to picking up new customers and also building your brand online. And this goes in tandem with everything that you have offline. So it might also be everything down to delivery on your van, or what you're wearing on your shirts, or the invoices that you're sending out to people, and just getting to know people, your online presence is probably one of the biggest factors in building that brand. And because of that brand building, you're getting to know new customers, and then therefore picking up their work as well. So the first way which we're going to look at in terms of looking at your online presence is going to be our websites. And the first thing that people generally do after getting a recommendation is to Google that company. Now, we hear from lots of people all the time, I don't need anything online. I have no need for social media. I've got no need for a website because I get all of my work through word of mouth. And that's awesome. That's perfect. That's an ideal world. But nowadays, more and more, we're finding that people are recommending, if you go onto the likes of Facebook or so on, you'll see 10, 15, 20 different recommendations. If someone says, do you know a boiler installer in my area? The very first thing that person is going to do when they get that list of recommendations is to Google you, or to have a look at your company Facebook profile picture. And that's why we need to have everything in place. You need to be visible, but not only visible, you need to be represented well as well, because this is a window into your company. So the first thing we'll look at is your website. Now, the website is the base of everything online. Everything eventually feeds back to your website. So your social media will feed back to your website. Your ads, if you're running them, will feed back to your website. Google My Business eventually feeds back to your website. And there are ways where you can skip the website and get in touch, but generally, most people, before they'll get in touch with you, will have a look at your website. So what type of things should you include on your website? Generally speaking, we always say that we want to have very clear sections as to the services that you're offering. So that might be, let's say you are working as a plumbing or heating engineer. It means that you have a separate page for your boiler services, you have a separate page for your boiler installations. If you offer something like power flushing, you have a separate page for that one as well. And the reason why is because people want to feel that they're getting really tailored information to what they're searching for. So if I'm looking for an installation, I don't necessarily want to know about servicing or power flushing straight away. I want just that information. So on your site, it's about breaking it down and having it really clear from the start. I also want to absolutely be able to see work that you've done in the past and work like a before and after set of photos. I think they work brilliantly. I quite regularly in our work see people putting up galleries of work, and it is just like hundreds of pictures, and they're all mixed up and they're all over the place, and that's great. It's a really good start point because you're sharing your work. But I mean, without making some people sound like they're not too sure about things, it's sometimes people get confused about what was the before and what was the after, and you don't want to do yourself a disservice. So it's about having really clear project sort of pages, almost like case studies, which are going to say, here's what this place looked like beforehand, and now that we've gone in, here's what it looks like now, really showcasing your work. And also just having these separate pages. Each page that you add to your website is another page for Google to understand what your business is about. And you're far more likely to rank higher for your particular area if you explain, these are the services we offer in these particular areas on each page, and be specific. If you have a page which has absolutely every single one of your services all over it, then it makes it difficult for Google to fully understand what that page is about. The other thing, if I just click on the slide a second, this is an example of a site which we built for a demolition company in Bristol recently. You can see here, in terms of contact info, this is probably one of the most important sections of your site. There will be even current customers who just want to get in touch with you and haven't saved your number on their phone. They want to be able to get in touch really quickly. So on your contact page, in this section here, we've got our mobile number or a landline telephone number, and we've got our email address here. We've also got it up here, and this bit would scroll down with the site, so it's always accessible. But one thing that's really important, and I'll come to this in a second, is making sure that everything is mobile friendly. So that means that when someone clicks this mobile number at the top here, they can click it and it pulls up the telephone option on their phone straight away. So they can ring you. They don't have to copy and paste it or write it down or remember it. Make it as easy as possible. So a tip for that, if you are making your own website, or you've got a website built, or you can edit it yourself, to get that telephone number clickable is what we call a tel link. So all you have to do is a bit like when you would do a web link. We have www dot and then the web address, and if you click that, it takes you through. To make a telephone link, all you have to do is type TEL and then colon. So I will put that in the chat now. So it is just like that. All you would have to do is type tel, colon, and then the telephone number afterwards with no spaces. And that will immediately create a telephone link for people to be able to ring you straight away off the mobile phone. Also, when we're talking about mobiles, it's really important that you make sure that it is mobile friendly. And that means that it loads nice and quickly, it's easy to navigate, and people can actually click stuff, and it all fits on the screen. We regularly see websites that where half of the images are hanging off the side of the screen. Just have a look on your mobile when you've got your website looking great on desktop. Just have a quick look, see what it looks like on your mobile, and go from there. That's sort of our quick fire thing for websites. I would also say the most important thing when you're building a website is just to think about what do the customers actually want? What do they want to see? They want to be able to see the services that you offer. They want to be able to get you easily. They might be sending a message or ringing you, but that is what the customer wants. That's our quick fire on websites.
We have a question coming, Grant. So, what's the best way to design a website? So, yeah, if you're a tradesperson looking to get a website up and running, or if you've got one that's very old, what would kind of your advice for that be?
Okay, so you've got a couple of different options. You could have a go at building it yourself. If you were going to build it yourself, you're looking at sort of paying someone like Squarespace or Wix or someone a monthly fee, and you obviously have to build it yourself. And that's where the difficult parts of sort of it being mobile friendly and making sure you get everything set up is fine. Some people have got the time and the bother to do that. If you don't have the time or bother to do that, then obviously you can chat to someone like myself, and we would go through the process of helping you do it. And we also make sure that we would train everyone on websites that they've got so they can go on and do it themselves. I can see Anita's just said, like, what's the average cost of a decent website? I would say it depends what your definition of average and decent is, but generally it is like a piece of string. You're right, but generally speaking, I can talk about our prices. That's all that I've got access to. But our 5-page websites, including a year's hosting, start at 500 quid, and depending on what you want from there, additional features go from there. We do also, though, offer, if you're brand new starting, you haven't got an online presence at all, we do free 1-page websites, which is like a foot on the ladder. And then the idea being that you might come back and expand that at a later date. So I would say if you've got the time and inclination and effort and you want to give it a go, Squarespace, Wix, and so on, they work well. They're not great for SEO, but otherwise, I would even if you just have a chat to someone like me and we just run through the type of things that you need, then yeah, we go from there.
Yeah, perfect.
Hopefully that answers questions. Feel free to keep the questions coming, guys. Right, next up, moving swiftly on, social media. Quite simply, you can't avoid it. Much as you might hate social media, lots of people say, I can't stand Facebook, I've quit Facebook, and so on. Unfortunately, if you're running your business, you need to pay attention to it, because the rest of the world is paying attention to it. And it's easily skipped over as just nonsense, just full of memes, and it's a waste of time. But you need to build it as part of your brand. So I always tend to say that if you're serious about promoting your business online, then it's always worth having the big three, which are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Each of them have got their own merits, and it is worth having all three of them. Twitter, I'll start with in terms of its merits. I find that Twitter is best for getting engaged in the larger community. So Twitter is by far and away the most active trades community that we've come across. There are thousands of people out there who are just sharing info, sharing tips, sharing their work. It tends to be with each other rather than with customers. But they'll just be taking photos and saying, "Hey, look at this installation I've just done," and people will share their thoughts, good or bad. But generally, also, it's just a good place to go for support, and you can also just ask questions. It's also a really good place to go to get and build a good relationship with suppliers. You can get to know different reps. You can get to know different suppliers. And once you build that relationship, they'll go, "Oh yeah, sure, we talked on Twitter," or "I've seen you sharing our stuff," and it's always a helpful process. Plus, it just gets your brand out there. There are customers out there, but they're a bit harder to link with on Twitter. Most people, when they're looking to actually hire a trade, will go on to Facebook. And essentially, it's worth having a Facebook page for two main reasons. Firstly, it's like a miniature website for your business, and you can do everything on there. You can share the updates from any projects that you're doing. You can just share pictures of yourself. You can share what you're doing. You can even share prices. You can share promotions you might be running, or just general information. It's also really good because lots of people now use Facebook Messenger as their first method of contacting businesses. If you don't have a Facebook page, they just lose that. And lots of people, especially if, like I was talking about earlier, there's a list of recommended companies, people tend to tag your actual business page on those. And then people will click that link, they'll come to your business page, they'll send a message. And that is their way of generating leads now. And if you haven't got it, quite simply, you're probably missing out. You do not have to do endless updates onto it, because they won't pop up in people's news feeds really unless they're actually following you. It's just worth having, even if you don't really update it. The final one of the big three, Instagram. Instagram is simply really good. It's a bit like having that showcase gallery, those before and afters, but just through social media. It's a really good way of showcasing your work, showing off what you can do. And if you use the right hashtags in the right area, people can begin to find you. Especially if you're doing something which is really visually appealing, or you do a really good job and people can see that in that house, that piece of work has come out really nicely, then they immediately will see that going well in their own home. So it's worth having as well. The other reason why it's worth having any social media is because they all act as a miniature powerhouse to your website. So it passes on some kudos. So in Google's eyes, your website is more trustworthy because you've gone to the effort of building up these social networks around it. So it just legitimizes your business even more so. In terms of a tip going forward, one network I missed off, LinkedIn. I would say LinkedIn is worthwhile having, again, as that legitimizer factor. But if you are a business which is working in the commercial setting, it's well worth having as well, because it gives you direct access to the decision makers. Let's say a quote was coming in and you were asked to tender for it, or you saw that a business was looking for something, then you will be able to get in direct contact with those people through LinkedIn, just through searching for that particular brand. So that's one if you're looking into commercial. This is my tip for social media. Social media is a pain for lots of people. They find it really difficult to actually be bothered to sit down and do it. These two online pieces of software, Hootsuite, or the other one's called Later, it helps you just to schedule posts, so you don't have to keep remembering to do the post all the time. What it means is that if you sit down for no, even 20 minutes, half an hour. And you can just schedule posts to go out as and when you want. So if you are just sharing promotions or you're sharing your services, you don't have to remember to sit there and type it all out on your phone and then press post and it goes up immediately. You can just slowly type it out as and when you want with a cup of tea at the end of the day and say, I'd like this to go out on Monday at midday. And then I'd like this next one to go out on Tuesday at 5 o'clock when people are getting home from work. And it just keeps your presence, social media presence, just ticking along nicely so that people can see that you're up to date, you are engaging with people, and it's there. Hootsuite, I think you have to pay for. They used to have a free version. I don't know if they have got it anymore. But Later, I've not used Later, but I've heard really good things about it, and they have got a free forever version of it, which for what we're looking at here is probably plenty. Right, next step, ads. Just before I move on, any quick questions on social media? Feel free to throw them out, otherwise we will come back to them later on. In terms of advertising, we'll talk about two different types of advertising. Our specialism and one that we've worked in is for Google Ads. We don't tend to run so many Facebook ads, but we do run them. The Google Ads is where it's at for trades, in our opinion. Three quick questions. Why bother? Aren't they really expensive? And do they even work? So first off, what are Google Ads? Google Ads are, if you are going to search for any particular service in your local area, you will see at the top of the page, there are three bolded search results. And they tend to have a small box next to them that says ad. That is that company's way of jumping to the top of listings because they have paid for them. They will have put some money into Google Ads and that ad will show up there. You don't actually pay for that advert to be shown with Google. You only ever get charged by Google if someone clicks onto that advert and therefore has gone through to your website. They work really well for local searches. So you are focused on one particular area or particular areas for that advert. You can even narrow it down to postcodes and even television delivery areas. It is really, really niche, and that's where it works absolutely best. If you try, the people who come up to me and say they're really expensive and they didn't work, tend to be where they haven't got their location targeting right. And let's say you are a plumber working out of Doncaster, suddenly your advert's showing up in Essex. It's not particularly helpful, and people will click on it because people click on the first thing that they see, and that's cost you money and is completely useless. So it's always worth, with Google Ads, taking the time, making sure you get all your targeting right, and working out, and this is where our tip is, it's time to do some maths, is working out, is it going to be worth it for you? So I've gone through and done a bit of an example here. So sorry if this is a bit of a maths sort of lecture, but it is worth doing. So let's say, this is how you work out whether or not it's worth it for you. Let's say 100 people click on your ad, and every time they click on that ad, Google charges you £2 per click. Now on the face of it, and that can be up to £5, £10, even £20 a click. On the face of it, that seems quite expensive. So to get 100 people through to your website, that's 200 quid. So they haven't even done anything yet. So it's, on the face of it, it can be quite galling that you spent 200 quid for potentially nothing at that point. Now let's say, and these, I've gone really low bar on these estimates here. Let's say only 10% of those people, of the 100 people who clicked on that ad, only 10% of them actually use your contact form or get in touch with you or call you. So that's 10 people who have contacted you for that £200. So that makes £20 a lead, which is not too bad. It's not bad for a lead. Now let's say that only 10% of those 10 people who contacted you actually convert into a customer. So that's one person. So that one customer still costs you that original 200 quid. So that makes them £200 per conversion. Now let's say that average customer nets you, let's say, a £500 profit. So that means that after running those ads for those £100, for that £200, 100 people that clicked it, that new customer has made you 300 quid profit. that you didn't have before because they're a brand new customer. And that's before you add any sort of lifetime value, any sort of ongoing services, or any sort of them coming back to you for work or recommending you. So whilst ads, and this tends to happen when we speak to people and we say, well, you're realistically, you're going to want to be putting £300, £400 into ads a month, and then potentially paying someone to manage them for you. It's always worth going back and doing this sort of math and thinking, right, how many conversions do I actually need for it to be worth my time? Because when we hear that ads are expensive and they don't work, it tends to be because we haven't gone through and done the maths with someone beforehand to work out, is it even worth it? Because if we go in and we say, right, we're going to pay, Grant, I want to put £150 into ads this month, and I say, okay, but in your area, it's going to cost you £10 per click. That means we're probably only going to get 15 people click through to the website. And then we get into these percentages, it might not be worth it in your area. And then it's about going down really niche and working out, are there particular postcodes we can target which are cheaper? Are there particular areas we can target, different keywords, etc., etc. I won't go into that. But that's my top tip for ads. Do the maths, basically. It's a pain, but it's worth it in the end.
So this again, when we were talking about websites, this sounds like a quite a time-intensive job for tradespeople, similar to how do I make a website? Is this the sort of thing they can do themselves, or would you say that this is something that you need some expert advice for?
You can run ads yourself, but what I would say is don't just start throwing. Google is more than happy to take your money. Like Google will happily let you open your wallet and just spend money for nothing. I would definitely take the time to educate yourself a bit first. They've got some great videos. You can watch them online. Google's own call center will help you out. They are keen for you to spend as much money as possible. Or if you have got the budget, even for an initial setup, talk to someone like ourselves or talk to a different expert, because it is worth doing the investment up front to save yourself a sort of lengthy bit of mistake in the future.
Yeah, I mean, have you found that in your experience? A lot of people have kind of tried it themselves and gone, yeah, plumber, Nottingham, and then been overcharged or not quite set it up right, and that's why they go, I'm never touching that again with a barge pole.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, I think that the vast majority of our clients that we've had with Google Ads have come to us having had a bad experience, having had a go themselves. And generally it is just because, I mean, it's quite brutal. If you miss the setting, then it can be quite unforgiving. But it is, again, if the maths works, it's definitely worth it in the long term as well. And it really comes down to that lifetime value of the customer, because each person that you get becomes another person who recommends you, and that's how you grow. That's the way forward. Cool. Next up, Facebook ads. We tend not to run Facebook ads for trades, apart from for brand awareness. This is the subconscious nudge that reminds people that you're out there. Essentially, this is helping you become a familiar name. And lots of people will see an ad and they might not be ready to purchase right there and then. Whereas if someone is Googling boiler service in Bristol, they are probably looking for a boiler service pretty quickly. Whereas on Facebook, they're sat at home and they're scrolling their news feeds. They're not necessarily actually actively searching for something. Whereas if they see your brand has flipped past and you've got a cool looking advert, then they might save you for later and just go, oh yeah, okay, I remember them. So that next time when they actually do need your service, you pop up. It's a nice to have if you're looking to build your brand online. That said, we have seen some brands have some really great success with the right targeting. Facebook targeting is a bit trickier. Rather than just picking the words you're searching for, you have to think about the demographic of person you want to target, where you want to focus on, and it's all about your actual creative as well. So the actual advert that's shown. My tip for Facebook ads would be video is brilliant. Video converts far higher than a static picture or just some text. So if you've got a video of yourself doing some work, that's great. One of the best Facebook ads this year that I've seen for a trades company is a set of floor sanders. It's a family company, and they just did a short video of themselves doing some work and messing around and having a laugh. And it got huge engagement. Like, we're talking thousands of likes on it, and people said, "Hey, cool, I need you here," and they must be inundated with work. So it's about thinking outside the box rather than just doing straight up boring, "Here's a boiler picture," because it's just not quite sexy enough for people when they're scrolling social media. They're looking for something a bit unusual. I'd also, I'm not going to dive into it too deeply right now, but Facebook ads are great for what we call retargeting. Retargeting is that weird thing where you think that you've just sort of talked about a new kettle and then suddenly you're getting an advert for a new kettle. Retargeting is where Facebook will use your search history, even if you've spoken to Alexa or you've searched on your mobile but you're logged in, it has access to all this information, and that's where you get targeted advertising. Or if someone has been onto your website, you can show only those people adverts for the next, let's say, 30, 60 days. So it's a way of reminding people that you exist, and that you're still here, and then they can get in touch. So yeah, retargeting ads, and especially using video for Facebook ads. So that's it in terms of like paid advertising, and that's just one method of building your presence online. Next one is one of my personal favorites, Google My Business. Google My Business is arguably one of the best tools out there for promoting yourself online, and the fact that it is free is absolutely awesome. Google My Business is completely free, and I will throw up some links in a minute for you guys just to have a look at it. If you haven't got Google My Business, and the chances are the vast majority of people will, it essentially gets you a map listing. So one of these red pins on Google Maps, and it is possible to jump right to the top of Google without having to worry about your website too much with the right setup. There is a whole long process of making sure your Google My Business setup is correct for your area and your services. I won't go into that now, but we have, through our part of our business, we've set up something called Trades Toolbox, which I've got the link to there. Trades Toolbox is our YouTube video channel, and it's shared. I've done a whole Google My Business course all the way through from setup. So if you haven't got one at all, go through the whole setup process, all the way through into optimizing it and trying to get it up as high as possible. It will take time. If you make it tomorrow, it won't jump to the top of Google immediately. One of the things that it uses more than anything is the physical location of the person who is actually searching, because Google My Business was designed for things like coffee shops and bars and hairdressers and so on. And the idea being is that if you're walking down the street and you search for a cafe, you probably want one that's right around the corner. So Google will show you the places which are physically closest to you. When it comes to trades, you can set areas of service. So let's say you served a county or multiple cities or multiple towns in one area, you can say that you serve those places, and you will, in theory, show up in some of those searches. There are loads of different ways to optimize it. Like I say, I won't go into it now. Feel free to watch those videos at your leisure, and you can just learn how to build up the listing. What Google My Business actually is, how it looks on search engines is, let's say I was going to search for boiler installation in Blackpool. At the very top, before you see all the text listings, you see the map, and you see what we call the map pack, which is usually 3 businesses, and you see directions or website or call. Those are the businesses which Google deems to be the most relevant. So in terms of physical location and what they offer. And it's just another way to be available online. One of the best things about Google My Business is that it offers customers the opportunity to review you. And it is arguably, in my opinion, the best free review platform out there. So you don't have to pay for it like you have to pay for Trustpilot and so on. This is just there, but it does mean that anyone can leave a review. Now, on Twitter over the last couple of months, we've had a couple of trades get in touch and say, I've had an issue with people leaving fake reviews or leaving false reviews. They're a pain, but they can be countered. Annoyingly, the only way to counter fake reviews is to go direct to Google. There is a telephone number which you can just ring, or an email which you can send, and that will begin a review process. Google are really good at removing them. It just takes them a bit of time. Over the last few months in particular, they shut down their customer service centres completely because of COVID, but they are now getting quicker at removing them as well. But let's say that you're using them, well, not using them properly, but your customers are using them properly and are leaving you good reviews. It helps you to climb up, and it just looks really good in the listings. If you've got your business name and then 4 or 5 stars next to it, people begin to believe that you are a legitimate, well-trusted, reliable business. But yeah, so my tip would be, when you are setting these up, make sure you're really clear about your location and services that you're offering. So actually use the words. So use words like boiler installation in Bristol or power flushing in Southend. Make sure you're really clear about service and location. This is what people will be typing into Google to get you to show up. And if you've actually been very clear and actually put those words into your description, Google will just pull that through. So you're more likely to show up. The other top tip for Google My Business is to make sure that you reply to reviews. So it's really cool just to see a 5-star review come in and you're like, oh, great, Bob's left me a 5-star review. Thanks, Bob. And then just ignore it, go back to work. Google loves it, and also other customers love it when you respond to reviews, and just respond and say, and you get a little button. There's even an app for Google My Business, which is really easy to use. All you have to do is click on it and just say, hi, Bob. Really appreciated you using my business. Looking forward to working with you again in the future. Please feel free to recommend us, etc. Done. Reply. And it just looks like, again, you're engaging with your customers and you're building that online presence. Even it's worth also responding to negative reviews. So they're the ones which, I mean, I would take a break after reading it first. Don't get angry red fingers on the keyboard and just send out a load of hate, because you're destroying your online presence immediately, because people will see that. What I do is take a breather and then just respond in a courteous, professional manner. Just say, I'm sorry you had that experience. Let's resolve this direct. Something along those lines, if it is a legitimate complaint. If it's a negative complaint, then say it is. Say, according to our records, we have no, we've never interacted with you at any point, and you've never worked with our business. Therefore, we believe this review to be fake. And then Google will also see you've responded to it, and they'll get rid of it quicker. So those would be the tips. Reply to reviews and make sure you're really clear on the services and locations that you're using. So that's Google My Business. Yeah, do have a look at that link that I put into the chat for Trades Toolbox. Not only Google My Business is on there, but we got some interviews with some other people who help the trades. I think we've got Alex from the Vinyl Guys on there, who did a great interview about branding, and Sarah Toon, who's a construction photographer. She did a really good interview on photography for trades as well. Next, this was a relatively new one for us, and has been around for a couple of years at least. Bark.com. Some people would have heard of them, some people love them, some people hate them. It's essentially a way of getting leads, and I'm by no means a Bark spokesperson. It's just we've used them personally, and they've been quite helpful, and I've spoken to other trades who have used them, and they've had tens of thousands of pounds worth of work from them. Bark is a bit of an investment. You have to pay, so I think it's about 300 quid for the first set of credits. You use these credits to get details of people who have requested information or requested quotes. So essentially, they would say, I need a new boiler installed and I'm in this particular area. You pay something like 22 credits, which is about 22 quid, and you get access to that person, and you get their telephone number, their email address, and you can get in touch. Obviously, it is competitive because other people will be grabbing those leads as well, but they are great because this is someone who is genuinely looking for services immediately. You can also, the reason why it's part of this presentation at all is because you can set up a profile on there. You can put photos up there, you can put videos up there, and again, it's just another way of building your presence online. But in this particular model, you're potentially able to win loads of work from it as well. Again, it's a bit like Google Ads where you see it as an investment. You're not going to win every single one that you go for, but you may win some. And if you work on a percentage basis, it's working out whether or not it's worth it for you in the long term. So that is that's pretty much the end of my presentation. One thing that I will say here is we've got a bit of a freebie for people who have come along today. If you want to grab a slot with myself to discuss your business in detail, then feel free. You can drop me an email on this email here. I'll also pop it into chat. And as a thank you for coming along, if you decide that you quite like a website or for us to set up Google My Business with you, then we're happy to offer 10% off. If you just quote that code, install a webinar 2020 to me when we have a chat, then I will take it off our quote. There we go.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Grant. So this is your final opportunity to ask. If you've got any specific questions about anything that we've gone over today, feel free to drop it in the chat box or the ask a question button underneath. So Grant, for people that are, everyone that's come in will be at a different kind of level. So some people will have been doing all of this, some a little bit, some might have a really good website but have never heard of Google My Business. So how kind of daunting is all of this? Because you've given in 40 minutes, you've given some great hints and tips, but we've mentioned about 6 things. So how big a task is it for people, and where would you advise on how to start with things?
Yeah, cool, great question. So I would say let's say you have none of these, and you were just going to pick one to start with and do tomorrow. Personally, I would pick either Google My Business or your website. Generally speaking, I would go for the website because it's the base of everything. So your Google My Business will do better if it links to a website which also states all of the services and locations that you work in. Facebook and so on will always link back to your website. People like to share your website, and it's your own space, and it's your own thing to develop and build on over time. Even if you just start with a quick one-page website, which is almost like an extension to your business card, I'd start with that personally, because the longer you have your website, the more Google trusts it, and as you build it over time, you stand a higher chance of climbing up the search rankings. Google My Business setup. If you follow the videos which I posted, you can probably get it done in about an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. So not too long, and then it's easy to update. If you haven't got the time or you just can't be bothered, we'll happily set it up for you. I think it's £49 for us to set it up, and we'll optimize it as we said. So those would be the 2 places to start, in my opinion. You can't run ads, Facebook or Google, without a valid website. So leave those to the end, in my opinion. Once you've got the basis set up, you've got your website, you've got Google My Business set up, then begin to think about ads and social as and when you can. But yeah, starting point, website or Google My Business.
And you mentioned earlier, you talk about, and you still find a lot of people get business through word of mouth and the local community. But in 2020, even just doing, like you said, a one-page website and Google My Business, how important is it to have an online presence for tradespeople?
Personally, I think it's massive, because even it might be that the older generations maybe still heavily reliant on just using word of mouth and the people that they know. Younger generations, especially sort of those in their 20s and 30s, beginning to purchase their own houses, beginning to get onto the ladder, will rely heavily on online. They may have no idea of the presence of any trades in their area, who's local to them, who's not. They will rely solely on people being online, and they will want to see what you've done. Every time we've done a bit of market research and spoken about what people want to see on websites, they want to see examples of work. They want to be able to easily get in touch with you. Lots of people, I mean, this is really polarizing, but people do want to have an idea of price on their websites as well, because it gives them an indication. Because generally speaking, if there's no price on a website, it means you can't afford it. Whereas that's the way that lots of people see it. If you have to ask, you can't afford it. Whereas we find that if people give it an indicator, say that generally speaking, it's going to cost you between X and Y, so you're not tied into a fixed price, then people feel more that they know they're not going to get sort of, it's like the classic, you get someone walking and go, oh, don't know. That's what people want to avoid. So if they can see something with a bit of clarity, then they'll go for it. That said, as I said, even if it's just an indicator, that's what people will look for.
Perfect. And as we mentioned, how, if somebody has more questions that they'd like to ask you afterwards, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, sure. So available on email, and also there's our telephone number. So we've got my own email address there, and we've got the inquiries email address. Feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, our website, I've put that link to Trade Toolbox, but that's our full website as well. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to speak to everyone, and I'll send a quick follow-up email to people who have come along today. Yeah, looking forward to speaking with and working with people in the future.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Grant. That was really interesting. Loads of top tips in there that people can take away and do straight away, like this afternoon if they want to. So fantastic. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.